Hello, everyone, and welcome to Oregon State University's Go Further in Higher Education webinar. This is a panel discussion about the various career paths within higher education, what qualifications you might need, and some Oregon State programs that can help you get there. I'm Dan Miles. I'll be our facilitator for today, and I'm joined by our panelists. We have Jessica Beck, who is the Assistant Dean of Graduate Student Development with Oregon State's Graduate School. She's been integral in developing graduate teaching training initiatives at Oregon State, including OSU's Graduate Certificate in College and University Teaching Program. She currently serves as director of that program and is also a faculty member. Larry Roper is a professor and coordinator of the College Student Services Administration Program at Oregon State. Previously, he served as Vice Provost for Student Affairs, and he's held numerous student support positions throughout the years. He currently serves as a commissioner with the State of Oregon's Higher Education Coordinating Commission. And Joe Johnson. Joe coordinates the Doctorate of Education program in Adult and Higher Education. And he brings over 45 years of experience as a faculty member, mid-level administrator, college president, and chancellor. Joe has a keen interest in ethics and organizational theory. We also have Susan Morey joining us today. She's a coordinator for the online Graduate Certificate in College and University Teaching program. And Susan may address some questions specifically regarding the online program. Just a quick look at our agenda for today. Again, we're going to talk about career paths, whether you're interested in teaching, supporting, or leading in higher education, qualifications that may be required for different positions, and challenges and opportunities facing higher education professionals. And we'll also share some knowledge and skills that may help you go further in your career. We'll open up the questions, but just want to emphasize that this is an interactive panel discussion. We encourage you to type questions into the questions box on your webinar dashboard. And as facilitator, I'll try to introduce those questions into the panel discussion as it progresses. So we'll share some resources, and if you need closed captions, there's a web address listed in the bottom of the screen, but also if you go to the handout section and download the resources document, there's actually a direct link that'll take you there and can save you from having to type in that long URL into your browser. So again, this is an interactive session, and we're going to start out with a poll. And I'm going to ask you, folks that are attending today, can you tell us, where are you in your career? Are you currently working in higher education? Are you seeking advancement? Are you considering changing to a career in higher education? Or are you just interested in the topic? We'll take a few seconds to allow you some time to respond to that poll, and we'll close it, let's say in 5 more seconds, and we'll share the result. This will really be helpful in guiding our presentation today. So I'm going to close the poll. Here's a quick look at the results. Looks like 100% of you are seeking advancement. So you're working in higher education, seeking to move further. So that's great, and that will help us in shaping our content, our presentation today. So I'm going to open it up to the panelists. Jessica, you want to start off and talk about how, from your perspective, how people might be able to advance further in their careers in higher education from your experience.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Jessica Beck again. I'm the director of our 18-credit Graduate Certificate in College and University Teaching. And I wanted to maybe give you a snapshot of the types of students who pursue our online certificate. Certainly, as the title of the certificate suggests, people who are interested in teaching in higher education pursue the certificate. So this could be people who want to pursue teaching in a variety of roles, from a tenure track faculty member to somebody who wants to be an adjunct faculty member, and people who want to be faculty members at a variety of institutional types, everything from community colleges to private four-year institutions to larger public institutions. So that's one subset of students who pursue the certificate. But we also have a lot of people who are pursuing the certificate because they want to facilitate learning in higher education more broadly. And so these would be people maybe who do the work of orientation, training, advising, or who have instruction maybe as part of their job, but not the primary emphasis. And then we also have a group of students who pursue the certificate who simply want to work with learners in some type of instructional capacity. And so this might be people who want to work in libraries or museums or research settings, context labs. We've had people who are in the military who do a good amount of leadership and facilitation via their role in the military. And then we have people who are at various career points. So we have graduate students who are pursuing the certificate to help them with the work that they're doing as a graduate student. We have postdocs who are looking to use it to advance to a faculty position. And we have early, mid, and more senior faculty members or educational leaders who pursue this, as well as people who are not in the field of higher education right now, but who want to change a little bit and change their career path. So that is a little bit about the types of students that we typically have and that we are really sort of well-versed in working with for them to learn about these instructional skills in higher ed.
Thanks. Larry?
Oh, certainly. Thank you so much, Dan. And so for people who are currently working in higher education, I think one of the things that would be really helpful about our program is that one of the things that it does is gives you a deeper understanding and exploration of issues that are currently important in the higher education landscape. So particularly if you think about sort of the issues confronting colleges and universities and college and university students, to get a deeper and more nuanced understanding of those issues. But it also gives us a deeper understanding of students. So one of the things that happens in our program is that you get a deeper understanding and introduction to theory, but not just theory, but the translation of that theory to practice, and thinking about ways that you can apply that to a range of learning environments, just as Jessica talked about, whether you're talking about 2-year, 4-year private or public institutions, to think about the ways that those issues might play out and the way theory may influence the construction of practice. But also gives an opportunity to get a more nuanced understanding of the issues with which you may be confronted right now in your current practice. So ability to sort of deconstruct those issues and to find other ways of thinking about them. And then finally, maybe one of the things that I think would be really important is for people who are at career transition points to have access to mentoring, to think about how do you connect the current experiences you're having to an area in which you may be interested in pursuing the future. And so in that way, is to sort of think about particular functional area leadership, so whether you're in residence life or counseling or advising or leadership programs, and how might you transition to another area if that is the path that you see to your career advancement.
Thanks, Larry. Joe, can you speak to that a little bit, to advancement in higher education?
Yes, I can. When you did the introduction, you mentioned that I had a career. And it's a career pathway that spanned California, Oregon, Washington State. And I've worked in 2-year, 4-year environments and had a lot of opportunity to be involved in the career advancement of the people who work for me, the people I worked with, and certainly the students that I work with currently. And one of the things that I strongly encourage people is to think of a career pathway in terms of a particular type of institution. be it the private sector or the 2-year sector or the 4-year colleges and universities. There are different career pathways that go with wherever you choose to go in if you're looking in terms of higher education. I think that my feeling is that there are probably more opportunities at the community college level simply because of the number of the institutions and simply because of the fact that the institutions are so open in terms of advancing individuals across the spectrum in terms of career pathways within the institutions. But I always work with students and talk to them in terms of finding a full-time position that gets their foot in the door, be it in a 4-year institution, be it in a 2-year institution, and then look at establishing some years of experience and then achieving an advanced degree. A doctorate, which we offer a community college doctorate called Community College Leadership. We offer a doctorate in terms of leadership higher education, which is 4-year. Those are very meaningful in terms of advancement for somebody who has their foot in the door and has a career pathway in mind and is looking to move up the ladder. And I can certainly tell you that for people who are mobile, who are willing to move, who are willing to look at openings at other institutions, that within the field of higher education, I simply can't think of a career pathway that's more rewarding or where there are more opportunities for students to advance.
Thanks, Joe. I think we're going to go ahead and launch into another poll. We do have an audience question here. I'm going to introduce that after the poll, but I think again, just to kind of get a sense of what you, the participants, are interested in. Here's our next poll. Which career path currently interests you the most? Faculty, research, teaching, student services and advising, or leadership? So again, depending on where you are in your career path, we'll give the poll, let's say, 5 more seconds, and then we'll share those results. And okay, I'm going to close the poll. And here's the results. So it looks like a lot of folks are interested in being faculty and involved with research and teaching and also leadership. So we may shift our discussion a little bit more toward those particular areas. Before we do, I did have a question from the audience. Again, I really encourage you to ask questions throughout the session. We have a participant that's interested in financial aid and other ways students have funded the college teaching certificate. So Jessica, if you can address that, great. If you feel like we should address it offline independently after this webinar, we could certainly do that as well. So.
Yeah, and Susan, this might be an area for Susan to jump in again. Susan Moret is our online coordinator for that program. So we have people who are funding it, from my understanding, in a variety of ways. Many are, it's self-funded. For some, I think that they are getting some professional development funds in some cases from their organization or institution potentially. And then others are utilizing federal financial aid, for which they've applied and qualify. And then our OSU Graduate School does offer a number of fellowships and scholarships with varying criteria in terms of whether they're appropriate for the student. So I see students paying in a variety of ways for the certificate. Susan, do you have anything else that you would add?
Each of those things that you just mentioned is right on track with what I've experienced in the online program. We have some students who work for an employer who will contribute toward their career advancement if they're pursuing a certificate, so that's another route for funding in addition to teaching assistantships or just self-funding and working full-time while they're also pursuing their certification.
Yeah, I think the one other piece just to keep in mind for those students who are interested in pursuing federal financial aid, that they often have guidelines about the number of credits for which you need to be enrolled. qualify for that financial aid. So sometimes we have students who want to take only 3 credits where the stipulations may be that you have to take 5 credits a term. And so those are things that Susan works with students on, and from an advising perspective, to make sure that they keep up on that, although we're not privy to all of the requirements of your funding. So.
Great. Thank you for addressing that question, and again, for the participant, if you'd like us to follow up a little bit more specifically, just add that to the question box, and I'll be sure to share that back with Jessica and Susan. So most of the audience is interested in going into faculty and teaching or leadership. We're not going to leave Larry out, but let's kind of shift our toward. I will go around the horn, starting with Jessica, and just talk about what's required. You know, if somebody, you know, has gotten their foot in the door, or maybe somebody's transitioning from another field. Let's say you have an MBA and you want to teach business. You know, what's required, you know, to get your career started.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, so I get this question quite often. Because people are maybe fairly familiar with K through 12 teaching qualifications, which require licensure and certification, there is not the same type of process for teaching in higher education. There is no licensure or credentializing, so to speak. So what is required will vary institution to institution. Typically, to teach in, if we're talking about a formal higher education setting like a classroom, it is usually a content expertise, so which is often a master's or PhD in a disciplinary area. And so most of the people who pursue our certificate already have that or are working on one of those disciplinary masters or PhDs, and then do the certificate in tandem with that, with the idea that they are content experts in, let's say, chemistry, but now they want to be experts or have deeper skills in how to teach chemistry. And so that's what our program offers. It's similar to what Larry was talking about with the Student Affairs program, in that we try to marry the theory of how people learn with the practice of creating curriculum on how people learn, and then kind of couple that with some feedback on people's real-time teaching through internships, and then lots of opportunities for them to reflect on what they could do differently.
Great, thanks. Larry, can you add to that a little bit?
Yes, and so one of the things that I want to also clarify is that I think that a College Student Service Administration program can be a pathway to teaching. In fact, that's the pathway that I pursued. That got me into my faculty role. And so oftentimes through our experience, we provide students with the opportunity to do internships or other related experiences that expose them to the academic environment and to the teaching experiences. And then we have students who then move on from our programs to go into doctoral programs to then become faculty in higher education settings. And so what we look for in the students who are applying to our program is an articulation of what their career goals are. And then we try to then advise and support students in that direction.
On the same note, as a pathway to teaching, can you speak to how College Student Services Administration could also be a pathway toward leadership?
Oh, absolutely. And so again, I think that leadership is a pretty broad construct. And so whether you talk about leadership within a particular functional area, or whether you're talking about what some people might describe, the language that nomenclature might use, executive leadership in terms of being a dean or a vice president or vice provost. Again, College Student Services can be a pathway to those things. Having served myself in dean roles and vice president roles, and having many colleagues with student affairs experience who are currently presidents, both at the 2-year and 4-year institution types. So it is a pathway to all of those. I think that part of it is thinking about what you want as your foundational experience prior to going into your leadership role. And so everybody who's in a leadership role has some, whether it's a disciplinary or functional area grounding, that then serves as the sort of the frame through which they may initially look at leadership.
If I could add one quick thing, I think what's really exciting about these three opportunities being featured together in this webinar is that there is lots of crossover. That I don't see any of these as mutually exclusive. In fact, people who are in Larry's program have pursued and are pursuing the certificate. People who are pursuing the certificate might also want to be community college leaders and instructors at the community college level. So there's lots of overlap and ways that these programs intersect.
Joe, I see you nodding your head there. Can you add to that as well?
Well, definitely. I want to go back to the issue of community college, and I want to go back to the issue of four-year, because in terms of the academics, the terms have different meanings in the different environments. And I like the word, I was really nodding because I love the word Larry using about foundation. You know, what is your foundation? Well, what is your love? Where's your career pathway going to take you? And let's put it back in the community college environment. In the community college environment, the term academic has a very different meaning, and that is a person can have a career pathway as an academician and be from a vocational area. A significant amount of the instruction that at a community college that exists are people who might be in a nursing profession, they could be in welding, they could be in automotive. And that might mean something different in terms of an academic environment. An earned master's might be quite sufficient. But certainly then an earned master's in an academic area for programs that are involved in transfer. At the senior institutions, the term I want to be an academician has a very different meaning. And it generally means if you're going to obtain a doctorate, you need to obtain a doctorate in an academic field if you want to achieve tenure and you want to move forward within an academic discipline. And there may be an exception in terms of student services. I bring this up because it has to do with leadership and advancement. And that is, in the community college environment, you can come in and you might have a master's in adult and continuing education and be in the ABE, GED, ESL field or something like that. Or you might be in the vocational area, or you may be an academician in terms of transfer. But getting that degree, the doctoral degree in community college leadership, puts you in line for advancement in terms of moving up the scale as a division director, ultimately as a dean, and ultimately as a president or even a chancellor. The chancellor of the largest district in the United States of America is one of our graduates. And that's the scale. That's how he moved up. That's how I moved up. In terms of higher education, the advanced degree or leadership in higher ed will help you in terms of moving up in the student services area, the financial area, registration, and all of those. It has less meaning in terms of the central academic area. And all of that's by way of saying, where are you grounded? What is your base that you're operating from? Are you talking to somebody in a program that's offering a degree that can help you understand what pathways will open for you based upon the degree that you're obtaining? And there's wonderful opportunities. And yes, you can be a president, and yes, you can be a chancellor, and yes, you can change the world.
Great. Thanks, Joe. I'm going to jump in here with another poll. Going to launch this, and this is we're interested in what you think. For those of you who are working in the field already, or those of you who are looking to move into this field, what do you see as the significant challenges facing higher education? Decreasing federal, state aid, funding, addressing social justice issues on campus, facilitating learning among diverse students in diverse learning environments, or articulating the higher education value proposition, the return on that investment, or other. If there's a question that we're not asking that's maybe keeping you awake at night as a higher education professional, just type it in the question and answer box and I will share it with our panelists. We'll give this poll another, let's say, 5 seconds, and then we'll close it. Looks like there's some folks still responding, so I'm going to leave it up for another 10 seconds. Very good. Thanks everybody for sharing your responses. I'm going to share the results here. So here's what our audience, our participants, are seeing as the most significant challenges. Funding, social justice issues on campus. I'm sorry that the third question didn't come through on the poll correctly, but it is facilitating diverse learning among diverse students in diverse learning environments. Articulating a higher value proposition, and we didn't have anyone with another additional challenge in the questions box. So within that in mind, Joe, we'll go backwards this time. I'll start with you, and can you talk about let's say really any of those issues, but look like social justice and learning among diverse learners in diverse environments might be a good place to start.
I think the most interesting thing certainly is if you look at the responses, how many of them scored so highly. I am amazed when we have our classes that people who are professionals in the field, how well they understand the issues. And people from the newspapers to watching television realize that right now in terms of higher education there are issues surrounding funding that we're competing with other agencies, that budgets are getting tighter. It affects the number of positions that are available. It affects the resources we can provide to students. So there's a constant concern with funding, and that will be with us. There's also an issue that crosses between student services and crosses between the academic area, and it's a whole area around completion. It is retention, attrition, the idea that we bring in, especially in community colleges, a huge number of students. We have very high attrition rates, and that gets back to the issue of return on investment. They're all interlinked, and that is if a person does not complete, it really impacts the return they're going to get for the investment they made in terms of higher education. But I think what the poll shows and what I'm saying is, and what the participants out there in this seminar would immediately respond, is that yes, they do understand that that as a society we're very concerned about opportunity and equal opportunity. We have a very high level of awareness that higher education is associated with success in life, and we have an understanding that some groups are being excluded by either institutional forces or in terms of their own academic preparation. So what I guess would spark with me is that this is a great conversation, and this is what we talk about in our classes, and this is what we look at in terms of curriculum reform. This is what we look at in terms of discussing how our institutions are structured. This is we talk about in terms of where we're headed, and these are the guest speakers we bring in to talk about these issues, and Larry's one of them. We've had Larry as a guest speaker in terms of talking about higher education and the challenges that are faced. So I'll quit there, but these are really good topics.
Thanks. Larry.
One of the there's a lot of intersection among the various issues that were identified as the challenges that exist in higher education. But I think the main thing that we're seeing, and particularly where a program like College Student Services gets involved and could really make a difference, is that when you think about sort of the current social context in which we're functioning right now and the current social conflicts, all of those things get manifested on campus. And so all of the experiences and feelings that students have outside of the campus and that people are feeling show up in our classrooms. And so our challenge is to provide people who are equipped to construct learning environments that can respond to the broad range of diversity that people bring with them, that can address the wide range of human needs, because of the federal financial aid programs and other institutional aid. We provide access to people from a wide range of life situations. And with that comes some pretty profound needs. And one of the things that we do in our program is to help people to understand who students are, what their needs are, and what types of programs, interventions, supports can make a difference in their success. And so we provide some, I think, some real effective tools in helping people to be culturally responsive to the work that they do. At the core of our program and College Student Services program is a foundation in social justice. And we try to introduce social justice not just as a concept, but as a process that's enacted in terms of daily practice. And not social justice in the narrow way that sometimes it gets communicated in public forums for argument's sake, but as social justice is something that applies to every student who's on the college or university campus, and helping practitioners to understand how to enact that.
Thanks, Larry. Jessica.
Yeah, I'm probably extending on both what Joe and Larry have already said. The issue that I kind of honed in on with respect to that list had to do with about teaching diverse learners in diverse contexts. And again, we can think about teaching broadly. I mean, teaching includes the work that students in the CCLP program do and in the CSSA program. So that is a type of teaching. I think that this intersects with this idea of budget as well when we see you know, reduced funding in some state institutions around higher education, which leads to larger class sizes, let's say, or fewer tenure-track professors and more adjunct faculty members. We still see it playing out with kind of two key issues around it, which has to do with the challenges of reaching all learners. And again, I'm going to use kind of the classroom context as an example, but we could think more broadly to reaching all learners with respect to advising or other ways that we interact with learners on campus. But in the classroom, this is an ongoing question of, given the diversity of the students in our class, the size of our classes, the time that we have with them, which is really limited in terms of the scope of their schedules, like how do we reach all students? And then along with that, the second piece is, how do we know that we've reached them? How do we know that students have learned? And you know, what are our measures for student learners? And you know, I think we're going deep into tests or SATs as indicators of that a student knows something or has learned something, but what are appropriate and more authentic measures of whether a student has mastered or is competent in a specific skill set or knowledge base? And so our program spends a lot of time examining what it means to know something, what that looks like, how do we achieve that, and then how can we actually ensure that our learners have met those outcomes?
Great.
Can I jump back in?
Absolutely, Joe.
Yeah, one of the things that is important that everybody understand is, in the classes, we're asking the question from a leadership perspective: how do you meet these challenges? You're the president or you're the vice president. You are the one that has the money that's now missing from your budget. You're the one the president calls in and says, guess what? There's a 10 or 5% reduction. What do you do in terms of prioritizing what you're doing that will impact students in terms of student success or outcomes and other kinds of things? So it's a leadership issue from the funding perspective. It's a leadership issue in terms of student success and what you put in place and what you don't put in place. And it's a research question, because when you complete a doctoral program, you're going to have a thesis. You're going to have a research project you're going to do, and you're going to study the impact of certain admission procedures on certain students. You're going to discuss retention of some students and what it is that promotes that retention, and you're going to put that out for the world to see. So you're going to become a part of the solution process you go through in terms of our degree program.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
Could I add just one point?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Susan.
I was just interested in the strong response to each of those 4 topics, and wanted to share that a couple of the elective courses in the GCUT program have to do with the inclusive college classroom and current issues in higher ed, to directly take on these important concepts and challenges today.
Great. Okay, I think all of you have articulated how folks can advance their careers in different areas, whether it's faculty and teaching, student services, leadership. I think we're going to go around the horn one more time, starting with Jessica, and just if there's anything else you'd like to share about the graduate certificate and college and university teaching program, and also share a little bit about why you love what you do. Why do you get up in the morning? What gets you up in the morning and full of energy to come into Oregon State to do what you do? And we'll start with Jessica, and I'm also going to include Susan on this, and then we'll bring it around to Larry and Joe. So go ahead, Jessica.
Dan, can you remind me the second part of that? So it's what gets us up in the morning, and then what was
just anything else? I mean, you all have shared a little bit about your programs that you're involved with and how it can help folks build their careers and also meet the challenges facing higher education professionals today. So if there's anything else about your program you'd like to share, and then just share a little bit about your passion for this field.
Okay, so what gets me up in the morning is two little boys usually, but I don't think that that's what you were asking. Okay, so I've been working in higher education, and actually kind of what Larry was talking about, my path comes out of student affairs, which is where I got this passion for working with others in educational contexts, and at one point it was on the more student affairs side of the house and then shifted into the faculty world. And I think I'm just mostly excited, one, by working on a university campus because of how dynamic it is and how exciting it is, and that it's shifting and changing and evolving. And so that's one of the things that excites me most. I still, despite my sort of leadership role at the university, I still teach one course a year, and I think that piece always excites me, is to get in and hone my skills, test things out, even when they're epic fails, to then write those or reflect on them, and to kind of reinvent curriculum, to try new things in the classroom and really experiment. So those are the things that really excite me. The one thing, maybe a couple of things about the program, you all can take a look at our curriculum really quickly, but it's an 18-credit certificate, which is less than a full degree. So for some it's manageable, for some it's not quite enough of what they want, and so considering a degree might be a good option for you. But I think it has a really nice sort of grouping and clustering of courses that involve theory, as Larry was talking about, and practice, and then also opportunities to practice that through an internship setting where you get real-time feedback on your practice. So for people who are teaching a class and they can't get students to do the reading, to be able during the course of the term to try to troubleshoot that problem. And then our goal is always in the program is to set people up for wherever they're going. So whether that's a career in a formal classroom environment or sort of more non-formal working with adult learners, to have this capstone piece in our course where our learners leave with a portfolio that includes a statement of teaching philosophy and their CV and other artifacts that they can literally take with them to whatever's next for them, whether it's a postdoc, a different position that they're applying for, or that they want to go into their supervisor and ask for a raise or something like that. But we try to leave our students with the skills and then also documentation of those skills. Next steps.
Great.
Susan, would you add anything else that I left off?
I would just want to speak to online learning in particular. I think the ability to bring the classroom to the student today is what is so meaningful for me, because we have so many students who may be place-based due to working full-time, maybe they're raising children or caring for family members or others that require them to stay in the location that they are. And so these online programs let students work toward career changing or career advancement while they're still carrying on with their day-to-day lives. And the diversity and in-depth background experience that people bring to the program is what's so intriguing and makes the class conversations so rich and interesting, because we do have such a wide-ranging background of students who come into the program. So I love that.
Excellent. Larry?
So what gets me up in the morning relative to my career is just thinking about, I can't imagine a more profound experience than having the opportunity to be connected with other people's visions for their lives every day. And the chance that I get to work with people who come to me with their view of what they see are the possibilities, and for me to welcome that, but then to try to breathe life into that to help it to be even more than they might see for themselves, to help them to really see their brilliance and the possibilities that are there for them. And I feel like through student services work, I get an opportunity to do that every day. And sometimes that means leading people through a healing process to overcome some of the issues in their past. It's helping them to reconstruct their confidence or their belief in themselves. But in the end, it's about preparing them to pursue those best possibilities for their future. And the opportunity to work with colleagues to help them to also do that for themselves in terms of their own careers, in terms of thinking about where they're going as well. So serving students as well as serving the colleagues. I think in terms of the CSSA program, and what I will say is that we have a 50-year history of preparing people who have exercised leadership at all levels of higher education. That is a program that I think can, again, like we do with students, meet people where they are in their careers and to help them to find a pathway to whatever future they seek.
Thanks, Larry. Joe, before we move on with why you love what you do, I know you're very passionate about this. We do have an audience question. I do want to get some time, so we can address this first, and then we'll continue on with, wrapping up with your thoughts about, why
Sure.
you love what you do. The question is about the internship component for someone who's pursuing leadership in community colleges, looking to advance to a position of dean or higher. So if you want to address that now, great. If not, we can have you follow up directly with this participant after the webinar.
I can answer that very quickly.
Okay.
And that is, in the program, we ask that a student have an internship that's a little bit outside the field they're working in. And it can be that they've gone to another institution, they're engaged in a research project where the institution's trying to answer a particular question about in student services or some other area, or they become involved in their own institution in terms of a project such as accreditation, or they go to another institution that has a very strong foundation. It's simply the idea that a person has an opportunity to expand their background, to get into an area they might not be into otherwise, so that they're exposed to a broader spectrum of the administrative framework. And that's all it is. And we work with the student, and the student, it's very easy for them to find internships because they're not, no one's paying them, and everybody loves free labor. So what I work hard with is to make sure the student's finding something that's of interest to the student. In Washington State, a lot of them go through the Leadership Academy. There's a Leadership Academy for people that are administrators in Washington that plan on moving up, and they attend that over a year or two period, and that counts for the internship.
Thanks, Joe. So anything else you'd like to add about the program you work with and your passion for the field of higher education?
Probably every single individual that's listening to this, and probably every one of these panelists is going to smile when I say what I say. I think each and every one of us probably had a significant other in our lives that encouraged us to move on and be what we could become. In my case, it was my father, and he believed that you made a difference in the world through higher education, and we were in a very poor community. And I remember him spending hours with the young people trying to get them not to drop out of school and to go on in terms of what higher education could mean for them. And I see higher education in terms of changing lives and changing the world around us. And I am certainly a product the whole Kennedy era. We believed in, through education, we were going to get rid of racial discrimination. We were going to have equality in terms of housing, equality in terms of opportunity, and certainly not all that's come to pass, and certainly we're still working on it. But I was there at Sproul Hall when they turned on the water hoses, and down I went, and I've never given up. You get back up, and you keep right on going, and you keep trying to change the world. And in today's environment, it's even more important. It's more important that each and every one of us understand the values of this country and how important it is that every single American believe in those values and have an opportunity to be successful and be a part of the American dream. I believe in the American dream, and I believe through higher education you achieve the American dream, and I believe when you become an administrator and when you become in charge of things, it's your responsibility to make sure every student can take a step forward on that pathway.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today, participants and panelists alike. Before it doesn't look like we have any additional questions coming in on the dashboard, but we will, just sit here for another minute or two to allow anybody out there in the audience. We have 15 folks in attendance to see if anybody else has a question. In the meantime, if you are interested in additional information, there is a resources document in the handout section of your webinar dashboard. You can download that PDF, and it includes links to the various programs that Oregon State offers, and also contact information for the folks who are panelists who participated in the webinar today. So,
and we should quickly mention that every program that they're talking about today, at every program at OSU has a coordinator. And when they send in a question, there's an individual related to that program that can answer the question and do follow-up. So if students have questions about program, how to get in or how to move through it, they can be quickly answered through an email.
Great. It looks like we do have one other question here. Let's see. Do you believe an administration figure can still teach in the classroom? So if somebody's in administration, can they still teach?
I was an administrator I was in my vice provost role at Oregon State for 19 years and taught every year. Taught at least 2 courses every year for the 19 years that I was in that program, both in CSSA and in CCL.
Mary Spilde, president of AACC, the National Organization for Community College, President Lane, teaches in our program. Greg over at Lynn Benton, president of Lynn Benton, teaches in our program. There's 100 ways to do it, absolutely.
And, I mean, currently I have an administrative role as assistant dean, but I've retained teaching as part of my duties, and that was something that I stipulated in my contract when I was negotiating for it. But I think I also just want to sort of say that the idea of the student affairs, academic affairs as 2 very different sides of the house, I think the boundaries are much more blurred today, in that student affairs administrators are often expected to teach an orientation class, let's say, and faculty are expected to do administrative work. So these lines of the 2 not intersecting, I don't really think exists as much, at least here at OSU. And I think that that's probably good for our students and probably ultimately kind of good for our souls to be doing different types of things.
Thanks, Jessica. We did have another participant question come in. What would your advice be for someone who has a master's in adult education but is nervous about pursuing one of the doctorates that OSU offers? Anybody want to jump on that?
Very quickly, it would depend upon the career pathway. Yet we have people in adult basic ed, GED, and others who are in that area and get our doctorate and move up through the positions that become deans or other kinds of things. So I would want to talk to that person and find out what they've been teaching and how they've been teaching it and what they're thinking of in terms of movement. And the other thing is mobility. The more you're willing to relocate and look at another institution, the greater the number of opportunities are. So it's a complex question in terms of the classes you've taught, programs you taught in, what you want to do, and where you want to be.
Right. And Joe, we can connect you with this participant after the
Sure.
webinar, so you could certainly follow up with that person in the upcoming weeks. So
Absolutely.
we'll certainly make sure that that happens. So thanks all of you for participating today, participants and panelists alike. We hope this discussion for you participants has really been useful as you consider your higher education career paths, and we hope you have a great day. Thanks a lot, everybody.